Okay, now I'm going to do something that's quite similar to the last scale exercise we did, but we're going to use complementary colours this time. Complementary colours are colours that are the opposites of each other. You might have seen the colour wheel. Yellow, blue, red. Primary colours. Now the colours that are opposite each other are called complementary colours. They're not called opposites, they're called complements. So the opposite of blue, over here, it's a mixture of red and orange, red and yellow, which is orange. So blue and orange are complements. Opposite red, mixture of blue and yellow, which gives you green. So red, green are complements, and yellow gives the mixture of blue and red, which is violet. Violet, yellow and violet. Now, complementary colours bring out the best in each other. That's why they're called complements and not opposites. They actually make each other look more vibrant when they're next to each other. But the great thing about complementary colours in painting is that when you mix them together, you can make the best ways of shading colours, the best ways of reducing the intensity of the colour, and also there's this magic spot in the middle when you mix two colours together where they actually cancel both of each other out and you get this lovely grey. It's called a neutral grey. And similar to the greys that we got in the painter's black, it's grey, but it's got a little hint of some kind of colour, some kind of indefinable, atmospheric, nice sort of colour. But it's neutral. There is no colour. So we're going to do some scales just to get our heads around that. And the good thing about this, the idea of doing these scales, is you can put them up on your wall and then you can refer back to them when you're painting. And you know, say you're painting an orange, the brightest part maybe you have something close to pure orange in there, but as the orange gets shaded around the bottom of it, to darken the orange you would add its complement, and you would slowly add a little bit of blue into the orange to create the shadow. Or if you had a colour that was sand, say. Now you might think sand's a yellow colour, but it's not. It's not bright yellow out of the tube yellow. It's a much more muted, subdued yellow. So you would add violet to your yellow until you took away the intensity of the yellow and you got that sandy colour that you wanted. Alright, I'm going to zoom the camera in now and we'll start mixing some paint. Okay, let's start with blue and orange. So what you can see here on my piece of paper that I'm painting on, this is another one that I prepared with gesso. I've drawn some squares. So this is going to be, say, blue here, orange here, neutral grey in the middle. And I've got two sets of squares for each colour. This one here is going to be a tint, which means we're going to add white to the colour so we can see it a little more clearly. I might add a bit of white to these ones just so that it comes up on the video as well. Alright, here we go. Blue paint. Now we're going to have to make our orange out of our red and yellow. Now, remember how I was saying before that some tubes of paint are more heavily pigmented than others. Alright, now red is dangerous, and alizarin crimson is one of the most highly pigmented of colours. So I've probably put too much down there already, even though I only put a tiny amount compared to the amount of yellow. So I've just got a tiny little bit on the end of my palette knife and I'm going to mix that in. Yeah, you can see I definitely don't need to use any more red here. Alright, that's looking pretty orange to me. Okay, so what we're going to do, where's my brush? Okay, dipping my paint into terps just to get it to flow a little bit more clearly. There we go. So I'm going to start at the orange end. And I'm going to do this square with orange, and then I'm going to do the one underneath it tinted with white. So I've got some white paint here. Let's put some of that on the palette. Now I might not have mixed up quite enough of this orange, so I might need to come back and mix up some more. We'll see how we go. Okay, that's our pure orange and our tinted pure orange. Now I'm going to take this orange and I'm going to add a smidgen of blue to it. Now you begin to see what I mean about using the complementary colours if you want to create shading on an object. So if you pretended that I was painting an orange as in the fruit orange, you can see how that if I wanted to make a slightly darker orange, see how that works beautifully. See how this is very vibrant, high chroma. High chroma means high intensity of colour, and this is getting a bit more muted is a word that's said. Muted, which means to turn down the sound, but it's like turning down the colour, turning down the intensity, the saturation of the colour. Alright, let's mix that with a little bit of white, see what that looks like. I really like doing this exercise. I know it's just an exercise, but it's just fantastic to see the possibilities that are there in colour. Alright, so I'm going to wipe my palette knife. I'm going to take this orange that has already had a bit of blue in it, and I'm going to add a little bit more blue. Just a little bit. Remember, you can always add more. And when I say a little bit, I really do mean just the tiniest bit. Blue is also one of those very saturated pigments, so be careful with how much of that you use. Alright, now I don't want to get to my neutral grey here. I want this one to be the neutral grey, so this is still on the orange side of the fence. But you can see how it's changing. It's almost like a murky yellowy brown, almost like a yellow ochre or a raw sienna colour. And this just goes to show, really, you can do pretty amazing paintings with just 3 colours. If you want to keep things simple, I mean, there's a lot of complexity you can make out of just 3 colours. And adding white changes them quite a lot too, so that's why it's important to do this tinting as well, because it reveals the colour in a more a varied way. Alright, now what we want to do now is try and find that neutral grey, which is halfway between. In fact, I'm going to have to mix up some more orange. Okay, now we're in the middle. Maybe we're not quite in the middle, maybe we need a little more blue. This is the tricky part, finding the middle. Just going to go back and forth a little bit with the orange and blue mix. It's kind of a murky colour. It's not really until you add the white that you see the neutral grey effect. Okay, so this is our halfway point where we find a colour that is neither blue nor orange. And let's add some white to it so we can really see what it is. Actually, okay, so it's a grey which has a little bit of colour to it. It's probably a little bit more on the yellow side of the fence, but it's still a greyish colour. But it's a colourful grey, and it's a lovely grey. It's a very atmospheric grey. Okay, now we're going to tip it over towards the brown. So we're going to take this mix that we've got into the blue, not the brown. Still think that it's not quite, there wasn't quite enough red in my initial mix, so I'm just going to add a little more red to that. Alright, so now you're getting a weird sort of dark murky green, which would be perfect for putting shading on trees or any green sort of natural thing that you might think if you're painting a landscape. And let's add some white to it. And when you add the white, you see we're still in that neutral grey territory. In fact, they're all a bit neutral grey. See, this is a sort of a lichen colour. Okay, let's step up this blue. This is the last one before we go pure blue. Alright, now we're getting this really interesting kind of deep sea blue. Mixing complements gives you such a range of beautiful colours to work from. And you'll see this a bit more clearly when I add the white. Look at that. What a change. Okay, so all that's left for me now is to add the pure blue. To complete this scale. Okay, you see what a difference there is there? I mean, you could do a lot more steps in between these if you wanted to. But look, what a difference. The number of colours you can get just between blue and orange. It's extraordinary. Okay, so now I'm going to repeat this process for violet, yellow and red, green. So here's our complementary colour scale that we've made, a colour chart, which you can use as a reference point now for when you're painting in colour. And you can see from just these three colours, you get this incredible range of nuanced, subtle colours, and now you've got an understanding of how to darken, how to add shade, how to lower the saturation, the intensity of colours. You can pretty much paint everything you need using this sort of a reduced palette.